All right, how's everybody doing? You guys hear me okay? Sound all right? All right, right on. Cool, you guys excited to be here? Ready to listen to me instead of Pastor Lynn? I know, you're stuck with me. Nothing you can do. I have a captive audience. This could be fun. Cool. Well, let's pray real quick before we get started. Well, Father, I just come to you with a ton of gratitude for real. I just want to pray that everybody's heart is soft right now and that everybody is ready to receive whatever it is you have for them, that we have a really good time interacting with one another, and that we just are really, really ready to stand on your word and hear from you. We love you. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Awesome. So, as you guys are probably aware, we've been going through this Tough Stuff series. And Tough Stuff series is where we take tough subjects or issues in our culture that demand attention. So what we're talking about this week is global warming. And why really even talk about global warming? I'll kind of set this up with the process I went through, the struggle I went through in even dealing with this. Because if you look at society, listen to society, it would seem that on a scale of 1 to 10, the importance of global warming when it comes to the impact on human life is like massive. It's a 10. But when I started dealing with this, if I'm being honest with you, Lynn gave me options of tough stuff subjects to work on. And I kind of chose global warming because I thought, well, there's nothing too, offensive about that one. And I don't get all fired up or anything, that's no big deal. So why is it a 10 in society when, if we're being honest with ourselves, most of us probably don't really freak out that much over global warming, the issue itself. However, as I started praying about this, first of all, I thought to myself, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set this up the way Lynn does. He always comes up with some cool statistics or facts or something like that, right? So I get online. I start digging through the internet, and I've got a few. I'll tell you some that I came up with here. First of all, let's be clear. We're talking about global warming, and I want to throw a definition out there just so we know exactly what it is that we're talking about here today. Global warming is the recent increase in the world's temperature that's believed to be caused by the increase of certain gases, such as carbon dioxide or methane, in the atmosphere. An increase in the Earth's atmospheric and oceanic temperatures widely predicted to occur due to an increase in the greenhouse effect resulting especially from pollution. So what we are talking about, what we're really trying to investigate what God's word says about what's called anthropogenic global warming. And anthropogenic just means the effects of human beings have caused this. So we're not just talking about has the temperature increased over the past couple of years. We're talking about the theory that human beings are burning fossil fuels, releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere that's creating a greenhouse effect that will send us on some sort of a disastrous course unless we do something about it. Is that clear? Cool. So the facts that I came up with. First of all, in general, the greenhouse effect is a good thing. Without greenhouse gases, we would all die. We'd be dead. The planet couldn't support life. Global warming is associated with hotter temperatures, but it can also cause the opposite effect. On one side, the Amazon rainforest is turning into a desert, but the Sahara is becoming greener and greener. When it comes to methane, most people like to blame the oil industry for that, and I've always been kind of a liberal guy that like to jump on that bandwagon. It's the man burning oil, putting methane in the atmosphere, going to kill us all. The truth is, cows produce more methane than the oil industry does. Almost all U.S. methane gas emission is produced by farmed cattle burps and farts, far more than the oil industry. 37% of Americans believe that global warming is a hoax. And 64% do not believe that climate change will seriously affect their way of life. Now, I wanted more facts than this. My plan was to, really list some cool stuff, some cool facts, cool statistics. The problem I ran into is that no matter how hard I looked, it was so obvious that what I was looking at was slanted. It was biased. I could find whatever fact I wanted to find. And if I found something that supported global warming, then I could find the fact that was on the opposite side of that. And every time I'd like check out YouTube and get a hold of some documentary, something, and it starts out right away with this ominous music. And the feeling you get is, no matter what they say, what they're trying to tell me is we're all dead. It's just so, you know. And it became frustrating. And the only time I would come up with some stuff that I thought was pretty unbiased, I found a guy, I forgot his name, some Swedish guy that's a Nobel laureate, a physicist. And he gave a 15 or 20 minute presentation that I saw that I was like, this guy's pretty legit. There were a couple of them out there. They all came to the same conclusion. We don't know. We don't really know what's happening. So I couldn't come up with a whole bunch of facts. It does appear that according to the record, 2014 was the hottest year on record. However, the recorded record only goes back to 1880, and up until after World War II, that record is considered extremely unreliable at best, and probably should just be thrown out the window. So we're talking about the history of the world, and the only record we have goes back to 1880. There's no way that you can really determine what might or might not happen in our environment over the course of, the Earth's life based on this little sliver of highly unreliable record. Both sides pretty much agree that there is more CO2 in the atmosphere now than ever before, but it is widely debated as to whether or not that will do anything. More than likely, it's pretty grandiose to believe that no matter what we do, that human beings could put enough CO2 into the atmosphere to really burn us up. And a lot of scientists say if there was too much in there, it would cool us off anyway. So, no matter how hard I looked, and I kind of knew this to begin with, but I didn't have a whole lot of facts. I'd never really researched this. Based on everything that I studied, and I put a lot of time into it, got very frustrated trying to come up with facts, there's really no way that we can know. And the most learned, unbiased scientists seem to say the same thing. It looks like, there are a lot of people, we drive a lot of cars, we probably are putting a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, but most people don't think that can really do anything. So that being said, as I'm praying about this and trying to figure out how to put this message together, I remember something. I remember a conversation that I had with my now wife, I love saying that, my wife, about how bothered I got whenever Pastor Lynn would talk about global warming. Because every time he would talk about it, he'd be like, oh, global warming, oh, they're going to kill us all. He's like totally mocking it, And every time he did that, something inside of me would be like, oh, I would just cringe, Because I really thought, even though I hadn't researched it, I really believed, well, yeah, global warming's real. It's just a fact, right? The polar ice caps are melting. Glaciers are falling off. The ocean's rising, I don't know if it's going to kill us all, but it's really happening. And so on the other side of that belief, which I hadn't put a lot of thought into, was the belief that if you mocked global warming, you were an uneducated redneck. I'm being completely honest. Now, I hadn't articulated that thought in my head, but that's what was going on. So, I'm going to start this by, since we know that we can find ample evidence to support this on either side, and we know that, if we're being unbiased, the questions that came to my mind, why did it bother me to hear global warming mocked? Why did it fire me up? Why did I feel compelled to go to Crystal and say, oh man, Lynn was mocking global warming again. It's just, I hate when he does that. It lends credibility to the theory that all Christians are, have committed intellectual suicide. It's the opiate of the masses. We're all rednecks. Oh, That's what I thought. That was the attitude, even though I hadn't articulated it. And what did I really ever care or believe about this issue? There's a lot of talk about it. You read a lot of stuff about it, but it's not like I was laying in bed at night thinking, oh no, global warming, better do something about this. How big's my carbon footprint, In the right social group, maybe, I pretended to care. But when it came down to it, I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it. What could the agendas be on either side? Well, we know that there are political agendas. We know that there are economic agendas. It gets really, really dangerous to dig into this stuff too much because instantly we are crusade-led. And we can go off on all kinds of crusades. I love to watch documentaries about the Illuminati. And then I'll get super Illuminati-led, this giant crusade, oh no, it's going to kill us all. And is investigating this stuff, all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. So investigating it, whatever, as long as we realize that it's peripheral stuff. But we've got to be careful with those agendas. However, there's a spiritual agenda to this whole thing that I think we don't think about often. I hadn't until I really started digging into this thing and trying to realize whatever it was that God wanted me to know about myself and then talk to you guys about. Can we really even know the facts? How much should the facts even matter to us? man, like I said, I put a lot of time and effort into finding out some facts. And if I'm being honest, man, it's funny how easily we sway from one side to the other. I've got reasons for wanting to believe in global warming that I will get to. But then I found myself wanting to disbelieve and disprove global warming as I'm researching this. Like, I can't just land in the middle. I have to convince myself of something. And for what reason? Those are the questions that started the whole thing off. And the conclusion I came to, after kind of frustrating myself with this, praying about this is very much an in the world, of the world, godly wisdom, worldly wisdom sort of deal. This is a worship of created things issue. Are we going to worship the Creator, or are we going to worship the planet, And ultimately, this gets kind of rough because we all kind of know the conclusion if we know anything about Christianity or the Bible. Even if we don't, we kind of know what the end of the story is, and it can be rough to go there in our hearts, right? It can just be tough to kind of settle on that. Oh man, I have to believe this. I have to admit this in order to do that. Very much an in the world, of the world sort of thing. And Jeremiah 10:14 says, everyone is senseless and without knowledge. Every goldsmith is shamed by his idols. The images he makes are a fraud. They have no breath in them. I dig that, because that's the conclusion I came to when I was really researching this. People thought they had a lot of knowledge, but when you're just kind of standing outside of it all and trying to really figure it out, it seemed like everybody thought they knew what they were talking about, but they were ridiculous. Or maybe they didn't care what they were talking about. They had an agenda, possibly. And I like how he talks about the goldsmith shamed by his idols, because in this culture especially that we're talking about here, the goldsmith had some clout. He was a dude that you listened to, just like the scientists, just like the intellectuals, just like the academics that I'm researching. That I'm supposed to listen to these guys. Man, they're the ones with PhDs, but what they're making, it's an idol. Television, it's an idol. Whatever they're telling me on the internet is an idol. The books I'm reading, idols. They might fill me up for a second in some weird emotional sense, some prideful sense, but in the end, they have no breath in them. They have no life in them. That's the conclusion I came to. And 1 John 2:15 says it best. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So there's where I landed with global warming itself. I don't know. But then the questions I have, well, all right. Doesn't God want me to love the earth? Right? Doesn't he want me to be a good steward of the planet? Well, for sure. We're supposed to be responsible with the things that he gives us. On the other hand, doesn't God want me to use Earth's resources to help people? Well, sure. Of course he does. The problem that I see is that both sides are illustrated with these two questions if you go too far in one direction. If you're too worried about saving Mother Nature, people get hurt. If you're too worried about resources that the earth can provide, people get hurt. Money gets involved, agendas get involved, and it becomes the creation instead of the creator. And what's really important is loving people. That's what it's all about. So, what even makes this a tough subject? That's ultimately where I landed. I want to know a couple things. Ultimately, I want to know, God, what do you even say about global warming? And we will get to that. But the question I really had for God, he says to work out my own salvation with fear and trembling. And the question I had was, what even is making this a tough subject? Why do I even care about this? I never thought about it, really, until I got bummed out because I felt like something was attacked in me when Lynn talked about it. And I came up with 4 conclusions, really. And they're on your outline there. And the first one, this is a big one, is that my identity was attacked when people started talking about global warming. I didn't have any facts. I didn't care one way or the other. And it's kind of ironic to me, maybe not in this particular setting, but especially like in the 11:30 service where we're at, I would say that the identity that comes with global warming is more of a right-wing Republican. Anybody who is anti or who is on the global warming bandwagon is just some, animal rights activist, tree hugging, dope smoking, Well, that's the culture I came from. I was definitely on the left side. So when global warming is talked about and somebody says, oh, it's not real, instantly this culture that I came from is attacked. And it's funny. Both cultures are attacked by the other one when it comes to this subject. And this culture, as hard as I have tried to distance myself from it, and I've done a pretty good job, what I'm realizing is that, I don't long for the city anymore. I love playing guitar and singing songs, but I don't need everybody to know that I play guitar and sing songs. I love reading books, but I don't need everybody to know what the greatest book was that I read most recently. Do you guys know what I mean? Like there were these things that I thought made me me. They were my identity. I don't need everybody to know what city I grew up in. I don't need everybody to know where I've been, where I've gone, but there are still strongholds inside of me that God wants to flush out. And even if I'm not trying to be a cool guy in some city playing guitar anymore, there's still this identity inside of me that is attacked whenever this issue comes up. And what the Bible says about identity, we've got 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old is gone. We talk about identity in Christ around here all the time because it's of paramount importance. I mean, it really is. If you don't have an identity in Christ, then you have an identity in something else, and it will crater you, period. It's the truth. But when somebody says to you, oh, hey, man, you've got an identity in Christ issue, especially when you're new, man, what does that even mean? That is like talking about glorification and sanctification and all these holy Christianese terms that don't really mean anything, right? Identity in Christ. What is that? Okay, I need it, but how do I do that? What is it that I'm struggling with? Well, it starts easy, right? I came to the conclusion that I probably needed to stop snorting OxyContin and drinking vodka. 11 times through treatment was enough, you know? And it's easy to give that stuff up. Everybody wants to give up that stuff, the stuff that owns them, the stuff that's going to kill them. But let's talk Galatians 6:15 here. Neither circumcision nor uncircumcision means anything. What counts is the new creation. So what's going on here, what Paul's writing about, is some dudes that are believers, but they've got this culture, this Jewish culture, that they just love. It's a stronghold inside of them. And they see this stuff as valuable, as good, as cool, as necessary. And what Paul is saying is, man, none of that cultural stuff really even matters. You need to give that up. And what I have realized is that although everybody wants to give up the stuff that's obvious, the drugs, the drinking, we don't want to go to treatment anymore, what's really going to develop your identity in Christ is giving up the stuff that you think is valid, that you think is cool. You know, I don't know how often somebody comes up to me with some fantastic new tattoo, and I'm not picking on tattoos. I have tattoos. But, oh, no, look at this new tattoo. So great, so awesome. It means this, it means this, it means this. Maybe you determined after the fact that it meant that, but, man, don't try to kid her. You got the tattoo because you think tattoos are cool. That's the truth. You know, you're not making some grand social statement. And that identity just needs to go somewhere else. Again, not attacking tattoos, for those of you out there that love them. But the identity needs to be in Christ, not in looking cool. And what Jesus is going to do is ask you to give up stuff that you think is valid or important. I mean, he says things like, if you want to follow me, you have to be willing to hate your mother, hate your father, hate your brother. In fact, hate your own life. Now, he's not saying go out and figure out how to hate people, but what he's saying is, you know, if this stuff means more to you than me, then you are not worthy to be my follower. And he says that because there's going to come a time when he asks you to give up something that you think is valid or that you think is cool. So identity is attacked. Intellect is attacked. That was a big one for me. I always had to be smart, you know. That's what I got pats on the back for. The culture I came from was an intellectual culture. Have to be intelligent. But the funny thing is that everybody's looking at each side with a slanted view. You know, I thought if you say global warming is a hoax, then that's, you know, it's like when people say the dinosaur issue, Jonah and the fish. There are things that are struggles for a thinking person. There are things that go beyond anything you can do intellectually, and this was one of those things. So my intellect is attacked. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. Man, we say that all the time, and then we spend our whole day leaning on our own understanding, trying to figure things out. 1 Corinthians 8:1, we know that we all possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. And love is an action. Love is sacrifice. Love doesn't have anything to do with some gushy feeling in your heart. But if you sacrifice, yeah, you're going to grow. But knowledge, investigating things just to learn, we see this all the time. I want to know more about the Bible. I want to be a theologian. Give me a study. Give me a Bible survey. Want to learn. Man, the most difficult people that I ever deal with are people that know everything about the Bible and have no desire, no capacity to endure anything from people. What you know doesn't mean anything. It will do more harm than good if you're not praying about working on love. That knowledge, it will just puff up. And you guys know that. See it all the time. The first thing, really, one of the first things that God ever commanded me to do, change my life. I'm in a treatment center. I'm in SOS. The 11th and final time I went through treatment. I'd gotten good at treatment. I loved treatment. It was like, I'd get too trashed and this is a break. It's like summer camp for me. I knew exactly what to do. Knew exactly how to get worth in treatment. And I performed well in treatment. I'd studied a lot. I've been psychoanalyzed by the best of them. I know the first 164 pages of the big book like the back of my hand, right? So I would get into treatment and I had the perfect stuff to say in meetings. I had the perfect stuff to say in the morning group. Knew exactly what to say. And honestly, the stuff I said probably did help people. It was valid stuff. I picked it up along the way. I read a lot. Therapists loved me. Techs loved me. I was great. And then at one point, God said, Jason, shut up. Stop talking. And it was because my motivation was all wrong. I'm collecting all of this knowledge and I say things that help people, but the reason that I say it is because I want to feel good about myself. My identity is in knowing some stuff and saying the right stuff at the right time. And people kind of freaked out, and that will happen. When God says, hey, I want you to give this up, people won't understand. I had a counselor coming to me saying, Jason, are you suicidal or something? You don't talk. Just yesterday, you were talking all over the place. And I'm like, well, man, God told me to. Probably didn't necessarily help them feel any better about me when I said God told me to do this, but the truth is, God told me to do it. And I learned a lot. It's quite obvious that God has told me to start talking once again. So that's nice. So intellect is attacked, and then ability is attacked. Okay. And with ability, what I have found is that comfort is attacked. We say we want to trust God, and we do. And when we're dying, when we're in treatment, having seizures, homeless, the people that we love the most don't want to talk to us, or, you're going to lose your job, financial troubles, kids are going crazy, whatever it is, we want to trust God then, and it's easy to trust God then. But what about when God tells you to do something that is not going to make sense to everybody else? What about when God tells you, stop watching so much TV? What about when God tells you, hey, man, you're going to have to tell your boss that you can't go to work on Sunday because that day you have to put God first? Man, work doesn't understand. We deal with that every day around here. What do? You're persecuted for it. It's easy to trust God when you want to get rid of something. Man, it's hard to trust God when you want to keep it and you're not okay with giving it up. That's tough. Our ability is attacked, and we like to use our ability to feel comfortable. We just do. I do. I noticed that with this message. I prepared for this message. I knew what I was going to talk about. I had it all lined out. I had notes scribbled all over the place. And I gave this lesson Friday, the first time, and I'm up here looking over it again, going over it. And finally, God is like, are you done, Jason? And I'm like, well, I'm being responsible, I'm preparing. And it just hit me. No, you're not. You're trying to make yourself feel better. It's cool, but you got to trust me. I told you what to say. Go up there and say it. If they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. God is sovereign, whatever. But I was up here trying to prepare myself into awesomeness. Totally. I do it all the time. I used to do it with worship team constantly. So, ability, comfort, attacked. What the Bible says about that, Ephesians 2, 8 and 9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your doing. It's a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. So it's God that does it. In Romans 9:16, so then it depends not on human will or exertion. I love that. It's not about what we know, what we do, what we think. It doesn't depend on that. It depends on God, who has mercy. And that's encouraging to me because usually the stuff that God is trying to tell me to trust him with is scary to me, and it just looks like it can't turn out right. This can't turn out right. When I got out of treatment the last time, God said, move into the homeless shelter and stay close to North Park Church. And I said, what? I want to go back to Omaha, or I want to go back to Lawrence, or I want to go back to Chicago. I want to go somewhere cool where couches are waiting for me and bands are waiting for me. And it made perfect sense. I'm going to do it right this time. And I've got all these people asking me to do this. And God said, nope, go to the homeless shelter. And I said, but I don't know anybody in Columbus. And what, I'm supposed to stay close to this little Baptist church in Columbus? And God said, yep. and I get scared at that. All I can think at that point is everything that could go wrong. My parents are going to make fun of me. My brother's going to make fun of me. My friends are going to make fun of me. To a certain extent, that did happen. But God's plans are always to prosper, never to harm, and he has mercy. I knew it was going to be all right. It was all right. The fourth thing, and this is huge, epic. We stand on wrong assumptions as though they are the truth. I see it every day. I deal with it every day. One of the greatest victories that I ever got was when God made me painfully aware of the fact that even though my motivation is usually good at this point, I was wrong a lot more often than I would have ever liked to believe. The things that was standing on, foundations that I had as truth, that I started from, needed to be swept away and remade because I was wrong about a lot of stuff. Just like this global warming thing. There was something inside of me that said, whether I knew it, or whether I could say it or articulate it or not, there was something in me foundationally that when someone mocked global warming, I thought, that sounds like an uneducated rube. That's what the attitude was in my heart. And that, we tend to stand on wrong assumptions as though they are truth. Man, it runs across the board. I deal with it all the time, trying to help people, point them to God's word, because obviously what I say doesn't mean anything. What's going to save you is God's word. And knowing it, of course, being in it, of course, but trusting it, because you won't feel like it, especially not at first. So I point people in this direction all the time, like, no, man, don't come to me. I'm just some dude, but I will point you to Jesus. Here's what God's word says. And it's so difficult when somebody comes to you and they think that everything you're telling them is that they are wrong because they have to get back to the truth way down here before you can even talk about anything, because they're standing on a bunch of truths that are not true. Does that make sense? Does that even, yeah. We've got to pray to see ourselves in sober judgment because we're not good at it. And if we're trying to grow from here when really we're down here, we won't grow. Eventually, we will have to go down here. Otherwise, we're just flailing about. God's word, Romans 12:3, for by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. And we do that if we're being honest with ourselves. We do. We love to look at what's wrong with everybody else and not ourselves. We love to look at what's wrong with every institution out there. Religious people love to look at what's wrong with every other religious person. My culture, I just love to look at what was wrong with every other culture. Think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. And isn't it interesting how everything that we think is valuable or valid, we think everybody else thinks the same thing? Our judgment is not sober. When I used to run around with scary Misfit shirts on and super long hair and guitar over my back, I thought everybody that saw me looked at me like I was just the coolest thing known to man. We all feel that way. And I'm sure there's some dude walking down the street or some girl with a Justin Bieber shirt on that thinks, man, rockin' Bieber. Everybody's looking at me thinking that guy's got it going on. We all think that. We do not see ourselves right. So we have to pray to do that. So we can get back to the start. Is that you rocking the Bieber shirt, Ryan? I knew it. See, I was talking about him. No, you were rocking. Oh, I won't go there. James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. I love that, without reproach. Man, God's never going to look at you and say, oh, dude, you should have known that by now. Come on, Jared. I told you this years ago. He's never going to do that, you know. So that's encouraging. You know, it's kind of a funny story, but a very, very telling story about people standing on assumptions as though they're the truth. And I see it a lot with our church. Like somebody posted a few months back, North Park Church, I've heard it described as the church that the Sons of Anarchy would go to. And that just bothered me. Not that I have a problem with anything like that. Obviously, the culture I came from is not a church culture at all. But that's like a shtick. You know what I mean? That's like, oh, that's where you go if, you know, you're a motorcycle guy. And many of you know that until very recently, I had extremely long hair. I don't want to just talk about long hair, but I only know me, and this is the illustration I have. And the long hair, I had long hair for, I don't know, man, 15 years, over 15 years. I'd cut it a couple times, and then I would always let it grow back. Now, I wanted to cut it for a long time before I did, because it's a lot of work. You guys know, man, it's annoying. And I really was convicted about it because I will always think that long hair and a beard looks cool. I just will. It's just in me. I'll always think it looks cool. But the truth is, the only reason I had it was complete vanity. There's nothing practical about it. I'm a dude with long hair, and it's a pain in the butt. It takes forever to shower. It's a complete vanity that I have this. So I'm convicted about this, and I wanted to cut it for a long time before I did. 2 reasons I didn't. One, Crystal, my now wife, she didn't want me to cut it. And I didn't want to upset her. And 2, I didn't want to deal with the people. As soon as I cut my hair, I knew that it was going to be, oh, Jason, haircut looks so great, and everybody I encounter for like a week, I'm going to have to deal with this haircut thing, you know. So I didn't want to do that. I put it off forever. Finally, I cut it. And I got the usual, you know, oh, you look so great, so great. And honestly, people that went too crazy about how great I looked, it always kind of bothered me a bit, like, you know, you put a bit too much into this long hair thing. But I'd encountered something this time that I'd never encountered before when I'd cut my hair in the past. There were a small handful of people that were seriously hurt, upset by the fact that I'd cut my hair. I'd never dealt with this before. Now, there was some funny stuff, like Grayson, my 2-year-old, you know, I go in and I'm like, pop in the door, Grayson's sitting on the bed, and he looks at me and he goes, all fixed. And that was all right. And I've got a stepdaughter, Sylvia, and she looked at me and just recoiled in horror. And she said, what did you mean to do? She was just like, so it was funny. But a kid, it's funny. But there were adults, grown people in the church that were seriously hurt by the fact that I'd cut my hair. And it bothered me, not like it cratered me or I was really freaking out about it, but I wondered what this was all about. So I'm kind of talking to some friends, good friends that I trust, godly guys. And what I realized was that hair gave them the ability to stand on an assumption that was completely wrong about me, about the church. We see it a lot here. Often, I used to go out and listen to life stories a lot at SOS, and usually it was awesome. But every so often, somebody would just hit me up with these crazy stories about how much dope they were slanging and F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. And I'm like, man, are you clueless? Why do you think that this is entertaining me? Why do you think that I'm impressed by this? And what was happening with the long hair was that meant something to somebody. I go to the church with the long-haired pastor, standing on whatever, some sort of assumption. I don't know. That means that we're cooler. That means that, they're not going to care if I don't really pay attention to God's word because we got this culture thing going on. And I see it all the time around here. And actually, it ends up offending people when they come here. People want to come to the church. They see some great fellowship that we have, and it is great. And I try to tell them, I'm like, no, but we're going to hammer you with God's word, God's word, God's word. We're about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Oh, yeah, I know. No, you don't. And then you get here and you want to bail because God's word applies to us and to you. So we stand on wrong assumptions as though they're the truth, man. As I'm growing up, I see it in kids. I'm raising these kids, and I'm at home yesterday doing a bunch of cleaning because I'm good like that, doing some dishes, doing some laundry, being all domestic and stuff. Gonna go clean my minivan, loving it, And the kids are just bugging me. They're just underfoot all the time, being crazy. And finally, like for the 100th time, I'm like, look, you guys, you have a basement you can go play games in. You have a toy room next to the basement. You each have a bedroom upstairs, places that are yours. I will not invade your space. You can go there. Why must you be right here under my feet, So they go away for a while. I'm washing some dishes, and pretty soon I hear in the dining area, crash, 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 some kid doing something. And I'm just, ugh. The assumption immediately is these kids don't respect me at all. I'm going to go in there and he needs to know. I go in there and as I'm walking, God's like, for real, Jason, you better chill out because I'm frustrated. Some righteous indignation is one thing, but reacting angrily, God says his righteous judgment will never be brought about by my anger, So I'm about to go lay it down to Grayson. You got to get out of here. And I walk in and I see he's standing there with this toy vacuum that he has. And it just hits me. My assumption is he's disrespectful. I just told him. What's really going on is that he's got his toy vacuum because he's up there trying to help me clean, you know? And I see this all the time, everywhere I go. And we just operate that way. We operate with this foundation of lies as though they are the truth. So, that being said, am I at the right spot? Yeah. What is the problem with too much concern over global warming or climate change? I mean, it's right to worry about, I don't know, man, the earth opening up and swallowing you, or crazy tornadoes or blizzards. I mean, crazy stuff is happening, right? So maybe some of you out there right now are thinking, well, yeah, but this stuff worries me. Rightly so. Peak oil. Legitimate concern. Who knows if it's real? Who knows if it's not? The problem with worrying too much about global warming or climate change, really, that's another thing I discovered as I'm investigating this. Global warming is kind of an old school term. Everybody wants you to use climate change now, I would assume, because it's a lot more pliable. If things get too cold, they can say, well, climate change. Things get too hot, they can say, climate change. It's all climate change, you know. But what's the problem with worrying too much about it? I'm going to read Zechariah 10, verses 1 through 5. And this talks about a lot of stuff, man. The problem, idolatry, we've talked about that. Being crusade-led, we've talked about that. Being experience-led, we've talked about that. Agendas. What Zechariah says, ask rain from the Lord in the season of the spring rain, from the Lord who makes the storm clouds. Sets it up right there. If you're worried about this stuff, you're worried about the rain, you're worried about the weather, ask God. Because why? He made them. He made the storm clouds. It's all his deal. He'll give them showers of rain to everyone, the vegetation in the field. For the household gods, utter nonsense. There's your TV. There's your internet. There's your paper. You know, and again, I have the internet. I watch Netflix. I read, but we can go too far. We can stand on this stuff as though it's the truth. We can use it to comfort ourselves. But those household gods utter nonsense, and the diviners see lies. They tell false dreams, give empty consolation. Everybody that I checked out on the internet, that they were diviners, modern day diviners. They were telling us which direction it was going to go. One of them said this, one of them said that. It all sounded very, very, very good. And I don't think they intend to tell lies most of the time. I just think they're misguided. So they tell lies. They give empty consolation. Therefore, the people wander like sheep. They're afflicted for lack of a shepherd. Now, a little background here, like Pastor Lynn always says, Old Testament gives us some example, and New Testament will give us the truth. So the example that we've got here are God's people, the house of Judah, some Jews that have been seriously oppressed by their culture, and slave masters, basically, their leaders. So that's what's happening here. But God says, my anger is hot against the shepherds, and I will punish the leaders, for the Lord of hosts takes care of his flock, the house of Judah, will make them like his majestic steed in battle. Now that's super encouraging to me. We, of course, have to be careful. We don't want to be some crazy waiting for Armageddon. Oh, you're all going to burn, and I just can't wait till the Lord comes back, and we win, we win, we win. You know, no, don't go there. But if you're anything like me, and it can be a bummer to realize the mocking and the persecution, the names, man, being at odds with popular culture. And I come out of popular culture, so I get it. It's easy for me to realize what's going to be mocked in me because I was the guy that used to do the mocking. And when I see this, when I realize this stuff, it can be a drag. It can be depressing. It can be discouraging. So I like what he says, I keep hitting the button, sorry, about the Lord of hosts cares for his flock, the house of Judah. He will make them his majestic steed in battle. And then we go on, from him shall come the cornerstone, from him the tent peg, from him the battle bow, from him every ruler. We're talking about Jesus because it all lands on Jesus. All of it does. Identity in Christ. It's all Jesus. All of them together, they shall be the mighty men in battle, trampling the foe in the mud of the streets. They shall fight because the Lord is with them. Not because they know something, not because they've got the right people on their side, not because they've got a cool t-shirt on, not because their boss is happy with them, because the Lord is with them. And they shall put to shame the riders on the horses. So, that kind of sums up the problem with worrying too much. Ultimately, the conclusion that we always land on. Always, always, always. God's word gives us the truth, and we need to trust it. And yeah, it does sound like foolishness to non-believers. It used to sound like foolishness to me, a lot of it. But they are great and precious promises, and any of you out there that have actually stood on them know that his plans are always to prosper and never to harm. But it's about trusting what he has to say, not our own understanding of things. And when we're talking about what's really going to happen, just to end it all, cap it up, summarize it, what does God's word say about global warming? Well, the first thing the Bible tells us, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And knowing that, isn't it pretty arrogant to think that we could destroy it or save it? We can't save ourselves. Well, there's no way we could save this planet, and it's really, really pretty big of us to think that we have the ability to destroy it. But, the question is, how much do we really trust what God says? So then I'm thinking to myself as I'm trying to end this message, all right, I want to talk about how it really goes down, because we know how it ends, right? God tears it up, Revelation. But there's some stuff in here, like Revelation 16, 18 through 20, that says, and there were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, a great earthquake such as there'd never been since man was on the earth. So great was the earthquake. The great city was split into 3 parts. Cities and nations fell. God remembered Babylon the Great to make her drain the cup of wine of the fury of his wrath, and every island fled away, and no mountains were to be found. Luke 21:25 says, and there will be signs in sun and moon and stars, and on the earth, distress of nations and perplexity because of the roaring of the sea and the waves. So you see all of this stuff, definitely end time stuff, but there are probably some of you out there that are saying, as I would have at one time, well, yeah, but maybe God just let us do that. You know what I mean? Maybe God's plan was that we burn so much coal or so much oil that the world is destroyed. That's how he brings it down. So I'm praying and I'm searching for something that tells me one way or the other, whether it could go down like that or whether it's like a heavenly from the sky sort of deal. Revelation 16:1. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple telling the 7 angels, go and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of the wrath of God. Revelation 16:8. The 4th angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was allowed to scorch people with fire. This is definitely God in heaven saying, look, you angels, go. I give you the go. Tear it up. Go. Pour it down. They are allowed to go do this. This is not something that just starts on earth because we've burned too much oil. This is something that is coming from heaven, from God. So that's what God's word says about it. Now, that sounds kind of heavy. It does. But what we can do is pray to see things more eternally. And this is kind of a tough thing to do. We talk about this around here a lot. But the truth is, if I really stood on everything that I knew to be true as fact every moment of my day, my life would look a lot different. I wouldn't be nervous at all. I wouldn't be insecure about trying to tell somebody about Jesus in the grocery store. I wouldn't worry so much about what's going to happen with terrorists or what's going to happen with the environment, because Hebrews 12:28 and 29 says, therefore let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. So if I could stand in that truth, man, we've got a kingdom that is imperishable that we inherit. So to end it all, application, because we really want something we can walk out of here with, right? We know what God's word says. The problem is that we have a hard time trusting it. So we need to know it. We need to pray to be able to apply it. James 1:22, we'll get to this in a second, tells us, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Don't merely listen because you're deceiving yourself. Do what it says. And what it says, it says a lot about obedience and things that you do, but it also says, trust it. Also says, your heart is deceitful and wicked above all else. That's your feelings. Don't trust your feelings. Eventually, your feelings will catch up with what God's word says about you, about your life. But if you are waiting to feel like believing or doing the right thing, you will die waiting. That's just how it goes. So do what God's word says. If not, you're deceiving yourself. And 2 Timothy 3:16 says, all scripture is breathed out by God, profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. So you can worry and worry and worry about your carbon footprint. But what's really going to make a difference? Your carbon footprint or your relationship footprint? I say it all the time. People probably get sick of hearing me say it, but I remember when God hit me with, I tell you all the time, step 3, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to God. Well, I remember when I came to the conclusion, after I'd been in a lot of meetings for a great number of years, that I had no idea what God's will was. And neither did anybody that was trying to tell me what his will was. That was before I had godly people to talk to or knew anything about the Bible. And after a bit of reading the Bible, a bit of applying the Bible, it came to me like, seriously, a bolt of lightning one day. You really want to know God's will. You really want to know what Jesus is saying will get you close to him, will grow you up, will give you victory, will free you. Be willing to endure everybody around you, especially the ones that you don't like. Jesus said, man, if I only love the people who love me, what credit is that to me? Even non-believers do that. It's easy to love those people. You really want to know God's will? Endure the injustice that everybody in the world throws at you. That's the truth. So we can worry about our carbon footprint, how much trash we throw away, how much oil we burn. But the question is, what's my relationship footprint? What are people going to say about how I interact with them? Is my heart soft? Am I willing to endure the injustice of other people? Or do I have a hard heart and I can sit around and throw scripture at them, but I'm demanding to be served and treated fairly? Because that's the question. That's what it's all about. And if you want to know God's will, you got to endure that. We're supposed to pursue holiness. So, we've got to ask ourselves what that is. And Philippians 4:8 says, finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. We cannot control crazy thoughts that come into our head, but we can absolutely control what dominates our thinking. And when you get hung up on the wrong thing, go back to God's word. Man, is it pure? Is it commendable? Is it going to build people up, or is it going to tear them down? That's the question. You worried about your carbon footprint or your relationship footprint? Cool. Won't you guys pray with me? Well, Father, thanks again for this opportunity to hang out with these guys. And I just pray that, your word says that you'll remind us of everything that you've taught us. And I just want to claim that promise for these guys. And I want to ask that as they go about their day, you remind them of how much you love them and how much you're with them. It's so easy to leave the church and go back out into the world, and whatever issues you have going on kind of seem to take precedence. And I just want to ask that you give everybody the ability to stand back. And, maybe there's somebody out there that's on the fence right now thinking, I hear you, Jesus. I know you're talking to me. I was in that spot at one point, and I stayed there for a long time. And I just want to ask that if there's anybody there right now feeling that way, they don't stay there. They just determine, okay, I know what you're saying. I know you're knocking at my door, Jesus, and I don't know what this is supposed to look like. I don't know what this is supposed to sound like. Give them the ability to know that that's okay, that you love them, and just let them cry out to you. Or maybe there's somebody out there that does know you, has walked with you, and has gone in the other direction, has made some mistakes. Your word tells us that you will take us back. If there needs to be some godly sorrow in that, good. Godly sorrow leads to repentance, but worldly sorrow leads to death. So just let that person cry out to you and know that your love is there. Give them the ability to have a repentant heart and just draw near you again. And I just, again, want to thank you for the day. Thank you for your word. It's an honor to handle it. And I just ask that everybody gets a hold of that. We love you, and we pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.